If you have ever tried to make a olive oil dispenser or a soap pump bottle and you've had trouble with the threads, this is going to be my thought process on how I figured out how to make it work for me. In the beginning, I would make olive oil dispensers and soap pump threads just, the right size, had to figure out the right shrinkage. I actually have a video on shrinkage if you want to check it out. And then I would epoxy the threads onto the bottle. You also, a roadblock is finding the right place to be able to buy the good kind of hardware. You don't want to buy cheap hardware for a expensive, nice, beautiful ceramic pot, right? Those threads have a tendency to then pop off of the bottle, either if the epoxy is not adhered correctly or if the threads itself, since it's plastic, it's non-porous, the epoxy has a hard time sticking to it. I'm gonna show you kind of my solution for helping them stay attached, and really it just comes down to abrasion, creating the surface on the threads to be a little bit more porous and like scratched up. And I'll show you what I use for that. And using epoxy, curing it correctly so that it does turn into an inert plastic is very important. And obviously you cannot glaze the part that you are putting the epoxy on, because then of course it's also non-porous. You also want to scratch up that surface, and I'll show you what I use for that. Let's say you got this little thing which helps create the threads on the clay itself. That claims that it's 12% shrinkage, and I put it on my 12% shrinkage clay, and yet it is just too big. It did not shrink correctly. It's much too small, so I either have to get a different one, or maybe I'll experiment with throwing this thicker. It should shrink what it says it should, and it doesn't. So you're gonna if you want to experiment with these, that's a great idea. I have been experimenting with them, and I'll let you know when I find the right one or figure it out. Let's just take a little walk in the gallery shop right here. I think I have some left. No, I don't have any soap dispensers or olive oil. Oh, yes I do, yes I do. So we have this one example of a soap pump. This is actually, as you can see, I tried to put the threads on. The threads shrunk too much like I showed you. Then, so I epoxied this on top, and it is on there. If I do this and put all my muscle into it, I want to rather break the ceramic than have this come off, which this solution does do that. I have broken the top of a bottle trying to get it off, and it broke the ceramic instead of detached the threads from the pump. So if you want to know if it works, okay? Got the appropriate size stick in there, so it's a good functioning soap pump, all right? Oh, there's someone walking up here. We're closed, and some people walked up, and I hid on the floor because I didn't want to explain that I'm just filming myself and that we're closed, and it was awkward to me. Another solution that I have seen some potters do is, and this is kind of exciting. All right? Throw the bottle like this. I mean, you have a little bit more leniency with this size actually, so here's our thread, and we're just gonna put it in there, right? Fits perfect. And then we have our attachment, which it will look like this. And what I like about this, and this is the first time I've done this shape, but what I like about it is that it hides where the epoxy will be. And something that I wasn't so crazy about with some of my soap pump bottles, let me show you. When you put the epoxy down here, you are going to see it. And so when I put the epoxy on, I would use a Dremel or like an X-Acto knife. I would like chip it off, grind it down. And then once you ground it down to be smooth, it would still kind of be like white, and it wasn't cute. So this is actually painted over with a sealant, a black sealant, and it looks a lot better. But I really do like how that completely hides the attachment part of the thread. So this is another idea, and I am going to put some threads on these today. But the key, no matter what shape you do, you have to abrase where you're going to attach the epoxy. So it has to be like in here for most things. And if you attach the epoxy only to this like edge, it's not enough space. It's not enough like point of contact. So you have to have the abrasion and the epoxy on this inside thing and going over there. And the reason I like this as well is because there's seems to be a little bit more points of contact. Now I know I said that you can't glaze the top of a bottle like right there where you put the epoxy. And when I did these, I couldn't really get in there to wipe it off. I will try to do that more in the future. And what I thought I could do is abrase it with like a diamond drill. And so I got this diamond drill bit. I abrased in there where it has a point of contact. It looks like it did a pretty decent job. But in the future, like I said, I'm gonna wipe off the glaze and abrase it still with this, but I'm not gonna glaze it. So we'll hope this, I'm gonna test out. We'll see if it works, see if this is enough. I do have a Dremel, and the Dremel drill bits just simply were not abrasive enough, and a diamond bit or obviously a diamond bat. This is a very, very coarse diamond bat by Diamond Core Tools. This is the only material, strongest material that's going to keep its coarseness and not be ground down by glaze. So obviously going to need this, but this doesn't fit to where we need to do it, obviously. That's why I got the attachment. You could definitely get a diamond attachment for a Dremel. I just don't have one. But the Dremel works very, very well for abrasing the inside of this because they are so small. So that is what we're gonna do now, and as long as you get those two things abrased, it's gonna go well. How many do we need? So I've got my threads here. I got them from a website called One Dream Design. We got our Dremel bits. Actually, this one will work good too. Okay, we might use this one. Fits in there. And it's real abrasive. Make sure it's tight. Oh, when I use this and I grind ceramics, I do always wear a mask, like a dust mask and glasses. I'm probably gonna need that for the plastic too, actually. You gotta be safe, all right? Ugh, oh my gosh. So yeah, plastic shards fell everywhere, went in my hair and everything. But as you can see, did a super good job. It's super abrased, and that is going to be so good for our application. Now I just need to finish abrasing the inside of these with my drill bit Dremel. I wish I had another one for this Dremel, but this coarse sandpaper just is not going to have any effect on glaze. So gonna use the diamond drill bit. Same deal though, same deal. Everything is abrased, which is what we want. Next is the epoxy. So I mixed epoxy on a cardboard sheet. I got this epoxy in jars so that I can just scoop out equal amounts. And the biggest thing that you cannot ignore, and really the only thing that you need to know with mixing epoxy appropriately, is to use equal amounts of this one, and the other one was called like the reactant and the freaking other thing. You gotta mix it thoroughly for 2 minutes, and you can't just be like, all right, that's good, because these are chemicals that are interacting with each other, and one is like a hardener, and it activates it to become hard into an inert plastic, and if you don't do that, it'll always be kind of sticky. So you don't want that. So equal parts, mix super thoroughly for 2 minutes. If you know more than me, enlighten me. Put it in the comments. Dude, I cannot even describe to you the remorse that I felt when somebody came to me and said that the thread of their bottle popped off. I was like so upset because that's not cool. I provide quality, I make quality ceramics, and the thread of a bottle should not pop off. You know, I couldn't find really direct answers or videos like this on YouTube, or just in a simple direct way. I'm sure because maybe it's something that people just work through on their own or whatever. So hopefully this is helpful to someone. So this is the epoxy right now. It's turning white. I'm just swirling, I'm going back and forth, I'm going the other way. Once you mix your epoxy appropriately, it will dry and cure very quickly. So I only do like a little bit at a time. And if you stop moving it, it'll start to cure kinda. So you gotta work fast. You gotta work fast. So we have our thread. I'm gonna put a big glob on here and just kind of work as fast as I can. But if your epoxy starts to harden, just throw out your cardboard and start another batch. Don't try to save the epoxy and like keep working with it even when it's like half hardened, because then it's just not gonna attach to your threads correctly or the bottle, and it'll be a nightmare. Once you let it cure and dry for 30 minutes, you can kind of Dremel any extra bits down. And so use, you know, a good amount and then Dremel that down later. I give it a good push, and sometimes I will let it dry like upside down, but then be aware that the epoxy can drip onto your threads and you don't want that. But one of the reasons why I do that is so that I can see if the bottle is flat, because if the bottle isn't, like if the threads aren't flat on the bottle, then this will be crooked, and you don't want that. Happened to me once before. I was so mad. Obviously. Tried to take it off, I cracked the bottle top, which was a good sign for the strength of the threads, right? Oh, I need to stop talking. You guys, stop distracting me. I need to work fast. All right, we really had to work fast because this is now much too dry to work with. So here's the thing, you can always troubleshoot and analyze your process. So like, did you get the dust off of the bottle? Did you clean the surface? What kind of threads are you using? What kind of sandpaper are you using? What kind of Dremel are you using? How long did you mix your epoxy? What kind of epoxy do you have? All of these things you can troubleshoot, and I just want to encourage you, don't give up. I'm gonna let these cure and dry for 30 minutes. I'll update you on the Dremel after process and show you when they're done. I'm so excited. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. I don't know, you might believe it, but look at how gorgeous that is. Oh, she was born to be an olive oil dispenser. She was born for it. Look at that. Oh my gosh, I love that fit. I love this fit. And guess what? She is on there. Woo! Dude, it's so sick. I love this one. Look at this one. Whoa, dude. Oh, I love this skinny neck with this like coppery, like almost like a chino. It's actually not a chino. And then with this like ultra smooth and shiny, and then tying in that copper that was, oh, olive oil dispensers. If you don't have something to like grab onto at the top or a portion in the middle, they need a little handle, because sometimes olive oil dispensers can get really slippery. So something I learned. Now look at this. Oh my gosh. Because the inside is like just so protected, I really don't need to Dremel a lot of that epoxy off, which I needed to do with this design much more. So I'm kind of about this. I'm really about this design. So I'm going to now take my tubes and of course, just attach them. You really gotta get them in there. And sometimes when I sell these to customers, I will give them an extra tube just because, I don't know, like if it gets kinked or if it gets disconnected or something annoying, it's like such a hassle for them to get another tube, but it's not a big hassle for me to get a tube. So that's what I've started doing. Just really make sure they're on there because you don't want to have a customer do any extra work. And then you line it up. You line it up. You line it up. And then you cut, you know, where the base is. So you got to account for like the width of whatever your base is in there. So like probably right there. If you don't cut your straw long enough, it will like bend and it would be hard for people to push this in. There's a part of me that wants to keep one so bad. Which one would I keep, do you ask? Probably, I like them. Oh my gosh, dude, soap dispensers are a pain. They can be a pain in the butt to fully like complete, just because, you know, you got the sizing and then you got the wiping off the glaze and then you got the buying the hardware and then the grinding and then the epoxy and then the weighting and then the grinding and then the sizing and then the screwing and all the stuff to finish it. But there's nothing like making a soap dispenser or an olive oil pump. Like the completion of adding the hardware element is so satisfying and you can use it in such a cool way. Okay, and obviously the olive oil dispensers don't need the tube. So I'm very happy with these. I mean, I'm super happy with them, and I have a few more shapes coming out of the kiln soon. I'm so excited. And you know, I'm just really happy that I figured out that the abrasion and the epoxy mixing and then the shape all contribute to a thread really staying on there. Like that problem made me mad and sad. But now we can be happy. Thanks for being here, and keep making art, keep enjoying the process. Remember that art is so important, so are you, my friend. See you next time.